welcome to today's Aussie webinar, Gamification. My name is Sarah, I'm from Redback Conferencing, and I will be your facilitator for today's session. Now, I'd like to get started and welcome our presenters for today, Dan Keller and Max St. John from Member Evolution. Dan is a sales manager and has worked in the association and not-for-profit space industry for over 25 years. He specialises in providing best-in-class software solutions within the industry on a daily basis. And Max is a national product manager and sets the Member Evolution product roadmap to ensure they meet the needs of the market. So without any further ado, how are you both today?
We're not bad, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Excellent. I'll hand it over to you both to begin the presentation.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to our webinar on gamification. Now, some of you might have participated in a webinar we did just before Christmas, which was about member engagement and how you could utilize the website to personalize information, personalize content, and engage your members through the web. And as part of that, we touched on gamification. And we saw there was quite a lot of interest and I guess, a bit of confusion as to how gamification would actually work with an association. So we thought we'd put this quick webinar together and try and give you guys an insight as to, how it'll be beneficial for you. So in the agenda, we're going to basically look at the following topics. First of all, why are games powerful and how they can be used in business. And for that, we need to have a quick look at what motivates people to actually, utilize games and do certain activities. We're going to go through quite a number of examples, both in corporate land and a few associations who have already put some gamification strategies in place. We'll look at strategy as things that you should be thinking about if you plan on using gamification. We'll go into measurement, how to measure how successful the strategy is. We'll talk a bit about technology, obviously. Resourcing, and right at the end we've got some sites that we'd like you to have a look at. Okay, before we start, we've actually put a little game in place ourselves throughout the webinar, and it's based on Scrabble. So you'll see throughout the presentation, on certain slides there'll be some Scrabble letters, and the idea is if you put those letters together and figure out what the word actually means, and the first person who actually figures it out and puts it in the chat will win a prize. And we'll have a second prize for maybe someone who just missed out, came second in putting the word, based on A, solving that word puzzle, and secondly, what sort of engagement they can have with us on our Member Evolution website, which is www.memberevolution.com. So let's go on. So first of all, what is gamification? Now, there's quite a lot of varying definitions out there, and there's one up there on the screen. But at the end of the day, it's really about fun, and taking the fun and excitement of games and putting it into things we have to do. So again, it's really about putting fun into work, which is a great thing. If you go back in time, this is not really a new concept. I guess technology has obviously changed, and technology is a great enabler. But if you think back to Scouts or Girl Guides who used badges for achievement, and these badges became a status, and almost like a leaderboard, if you like. And later on, I guess over the last 20 years, we've had the introduction of frequent flyers, which is a gamification strategy in its own right, where basically people will earn points for miles traveled, and then will get rewarded by the free flight or being able to purchase something online. So they're just things that have been around for quite some time. How popular is gaming? This is a bit of a surprise to me, but it's basically already a market of $112 billion US, and I'm talking about all games. But gamification itself is actually used by 70% of the world's largest 2,000 companies. All these stats, by the way, come from Gartner. They're not us who invented them, and Gartner is a worldwide marketing research organization working in technology. And they say that by next year, gamification will be a vital element of engagement and loyalty for branding and for the retail market. So expect to see a lot more of it out there in the years to come. And the market for gamification next year, and that's gamification in itself, will reach $2.8 billion, which is pretty nice. I found this slide here to give you an idea as to, on that market, who's actually playing games. And if you look at it, the largest sector is actually people aged between 20 to 34, followed by those from 35 to 49. So it's not just the kids, it's mature adults who are out there playing a lot of games. And really, I guess the majority of members in the associations probably fit in that 20 to 49-year-old area. So games are something that your members are familiar with. And there's also equal amount of ladies to gentlemen who actually play games. So I thought that's quite an interesting slide to look at. So the power of play, making boring things fun. So the other thing to add to this slide here is that the games can be really addictive, and that will really make people come back and want to play more, and obviously engage with you via your website or via a mobile device. But the ultimate goal is where the more time you spend on it, the more productive you would become. So playing it all day while enjoying it, your career will grow, you'll make more money, you'll create better relationships, and you'll add value to the community, and ultimately solving the toughest questions in the world. I mean, that's what gamification ultimately wants to achieve, and that's certainly what the luminaries who work in this sector are trying to reach. And engagement, which is really what this webinar is all about. Again, according to Gardner, gamification can actually change brain chemistry. It can truly influence people's behavior by changing how they feel and how they react to new concepts, and at the end of the day, radically transforming their performance. The best games provide clear rules, an engaging environment, and achievable tasks with instant feedback as a way to engage and accelerate learning and target outcomes. It creates a desire to do more, to achieve more, and to improve, and that's a really good thing. But like anything that's good, there can be some pitfalls. So the thing here, it's not gaming for game's sake. It's really about having an objective and using games to achieve it. It's not a magic pill. Adding a few points and a few badges and a leaderboard won't help you take the leap. That people need to be motivated to participate. It's about having fun, sure, but whilst trying to achieve something. Good gamification does not start with a game, but starts with our core drivers. And the next slide I've got in here is from an organization called the Octalysis Group, and from a gentleman called Yuka Chu. It's a great name. So Yuka Chu has been working with gamifications now for close to 20 years and is one of the pioneers in this area. And his organization basically works with some of the largest corporates and government bodies in the world and charities in devising gamification strategies. And their view, and I have to agree with it, is basically you need to motivate people to do certain activities. And he's, I guess, put a boilerplate together on 8 core drivers. Now, Max is going to take us through in a minute some examples of gamifications that have been put in place around these core drivers. But very quickly, the 8 core drivers are ethic, meaning, and calling, where you are part of something bigger. You're the only one who can save the world, and we'll see a Save the World example soon. Development and accomplishment, achieving. You did something extra. You are achieving. Empowerment of creativity and feedback, that give users basic building blocks and let them use their creativity and try different strategies. 4th one is ownership and possession. You feel you own it and you want to improve it, you want to protect it, and you want to get more. The 5th is social influence and relatedness, where what you do is based on what people think, do, or say. The 6th is scarcity and impatience, want what you don't have. The 7th is unpredictability and curiosity. Because you don't know what will happen next, you're always thinking about it. And the last one, the 8th one, is loss and avoidance, where you don't want bad things to happen. Now, I think we're going to have a poll. We've got 3 polls that we're putting through the webinar. So Sarah, if you could put that poll up, please. So the question is, do you use Google Analytics to monitor the traffic on your website?
At the same time, I'd just like to remind people that feel free to actually start putting in some questions that you might have. That way we can start gathering these up so that when we have a Q&A session at the at the end, we'll have all these questions set up, and we can see what reoccurring questions are being asked so that we can address that.
Okay, well, we can see that 3/4 of the audience actually already use Google Analytics, which I guess is what we expected. It's a very popular tool and a very useful tool out there. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, Max, I'm going to pass over to you and give us some examples of gamification that's already in place.
Thanks, Dan. So as Dan was mentioning, there's these 8 drivers themselves, which this gentleman put up in his thing. So we're going to go through each one of these right now and just give you an example of how they're currently being deployed in businesses, not associations in particular, but just everyday businesses. So the first one is the Pain Squad app. So the Pain Squad app was developed by the Sick Kid Hospital in Toronto, Canada. The goal of this app was to get kids to regularly journal their pain levels throughout the week. The problem that was faced was that many of these kids were often too tired, sick, or they weren't motivated enough to actually fill out the information in a journal. And the doctors really needed this information so that they could properly assess the effectiveness of certain cancer drugs or other medication that these kids were taking. So what they did is they went to market and they got a group of app developers to help them solve this by creating a game that included missions to help kids rid the world of pain. So in this app itself, there's interactive videos, there's badges, there's easy-to-use methods for logging their pain levels and where they actually felt pain. And all of this was tied together with a sense of progression so that kids kept on leveling up, if you will, from a person new on the police staff all the way up to chief. And they'd usually run this for about a month while the medication was being trialed. So that's just one example of assigning an epic meaning or calling to a specific game itself. The next one is development and accomplishment. So on this one, a great example that we found was the Nike Fuel Band, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard this before. Pretty much what it is the Nike Fuel Band is a fitness tracker that is worn on your wrist. When connected with the Nike app and online social website, it creates a great gamification platform with the goal of improving people's overall health. Fuel Band itself uses oxygen kinetics to track and differentiate between different types of physical activity, whether it be running, walking, playing sport, or just being really active. All of these activities will give you a score. So once it tracks this user activity, it will present it to the user as a fuel score on their wrist, on the actual wristband, within the app on the phone, or the website itself. Each day, individuals can set a target for the total activity, and as the day progresses, the band gives them feedback on whether or not they are on track to meet that target. The app and the website take this one step further by allowing users to compete against each other and climb on top of the leaderboard itself. The next one is the empowerment of creativity and feedback. And for this example, we thought we'd mention a company called Foldit. So Foldit is a game that was developed to help scientists figure out the best way to compose a protein in order to make better drugs. So the idea was quite simple, is make a game out of bending and manipulating a shape by giving users the basic building blocks and let them use their creativity to compose these proteins differently and efficiently, while also providing an immediate feedback loop with a score that you can constantly see moving as you tweak things. And just to give you an idea of the success of this game itself, is that this game helped solve a AIDS virus protein structure in 10 days after it had taken over 15 years for scientists to try to figure it out. You can visit this website later on after this presentation and really check out some of the other cool challenges they have in place in terms of helping to solve some of these scientific issues that we face. The next one is regarding ownership and possession. For this, the example that we brought out was DragonBox. I don't know if any of you have heard it or not, but DragonBox is an app for Android or iPhone that aids young students in learning the basics of algebra. So basically, the game uses gaming theory and tactics to turn learning of what is usually seen as something boring, math, into something that is actually quite fun and engaging. It does all this by having a game where a student plays to help raise their dragons. So they have this dragon that by completing more and more problems of higher and higher difficulty, it actually progresses their dragon from an egg all the way up to being fully grown. So this helps give them a sense of possession and ownership, so the student wants to actually play more and actually help their dragon grow. The next example is social influence and relatedness. So for this one, I'm sure all of you have heard of this or seen it recently, but it's the Amy Safe Driver app and program. So the app itself is quite clever. It uses the GPS technology in your phone to record your journeys and to analyze your driving behavior. Once you've driven more than 10 journeys or over 300 kilometers, it then provides you with a driving score and feedback relating to your actual performance. Some of the factors that the app uses on your phone to help determine this score include things like the length of your trips, the speed, acceleration, braking, fatigue, and your actual phone usage. The higher score that you achieve, the higher the app rates your skills, and any score above 84 actually starts to give you rewards within Amy itself. And they do all this also while trying to get you to compete against other people, as you can see from the actual TV commercial. The next one we have is Scarcity and Patience. This is also another company I'm sure everyone's heard of, and that's Kickstarter. So Kickstarter is an online crowdsourcing website that helps fund new projects from everything from film, games, and music to technology. You name it, pretty much people put it on Kickstarter. The website is set up in such a way, though, that it actually encourages users to register and purchase their interests earlier on in the cycle to help make a better product by reaching certain what they call stretch goals. So the idea in Kickstarter is that you introduce scarcity early on in the process, and that makes people want to act now and to be involved throughout the process. So that's how Kickstarter has used that idea of scarcity. The next example is unpredictability and curiosity. For this one, we're going to talk about the SpeedCam lottery. So the SpeedCam lottery originated from a campaign that Volvo was running called the Fun Theory. The idea behind the SpeedCam lottery was to attempt to use positive reinforcement and something completely different to get people to slow down and stop speeding. The way that it worked and that it was set up was that if you drove by this camera and you were speeding, you'd be fined just as you would on any other speed camera, and you'd get an infraction in the mail. If you were under the speed limit, though, your license plate would also be photographed, but instead of being fined, you'd enter into a weekly lottery that would be paid by the income earned from those that actually broke the law. And just to get an idea of the kind of success that this led to, is that over a 3-day period, there were 25,000 cars that passed by this camera. The average speed before the camera was installed was 32 kilometers per hour. The average speed during was actually 25 kilometers. So that equates to about a 22% reduction in speed just from changing the way that people conventionally think and do things. The last example here that we're going to talk about is loss and avoidance. And to talk about this one, we're actually going to talk about another fitness app, which is called Zombies Run. So in Zombies Run, this app was developed similarly to Nike Fuel to actually help users and people achieve their goals and to get fitter. In this app, you star as a hero in this epic drama where you must run to survive a zombie attack, and humanity is actually counting on you. So you need to actually race against the clock and the zombies to collect supplies, avoid the growing zombie horde, which can actually be heard through your headphones, and to solve the mystery of the apocalypse. You can also interact online to get more missions. So after you finish your run, you can log back onto your computer and actually see what more missions are and download more missions. The system also guides you while you're running through your headphones and gives you updates on your mission. So you might be 4 or 5 minutes into your run, where most people might start getting tired and slowing down, but this will actually push you to go further because it'll say, hey, this update's just happening here. Quick run for an extra kilometer to get to this station. So it's really about driving people to continue pushing themselves further and further. Now I thought I would talk about a few different examples of associations. So it's all good hearing a few examples from businesses with big budgets like Nike and Amy, but what are some associations that are doing things to help to actually use gamification within their industry? So the first one here is the Society of Cable Telecommunications and Engineers, that's SCTC. So SETC is an organization that is based in the US. They have developed a clever trivia game to help their members choose their continuing education classes to enroll in. So the questions are based around skill, difficulty, and user score. So once you've actually completed this trivia game, it will suggest courses to improve the member skills, but the game also allows people to figure out what areas they're deficient in and actually promoting what courses they should actually take. So it's really about gathering this information, segmenting it properly, and then guiding your member base down a path of, well, you should take this CPD program or that CPD program. The next example we have in association is the Competitive Carriers Association, CCA. So this is another association based in the United States. And you notice that a lot of gamification that we're going to be talking about is in the United States because they're always a bit further ahead in the industry. They've been starting gamification for a few years now, while it's just starting to trickle over to Australia. So the CCA is based out of Washington, D.C., and it's another great example of an association using gamification. So the Gamified Conference app encourages users to participate and become involved within a conference. The app features a hunt-like design badge section where the attendees can actually unlock badges through performing certain tasks throughout the conference. A badge would be assigned if the user visits a certain booth or watches a certain demonstration. They could also earn badges for each different action they perform throughout the conference. Things like posting photos, updating their social media accounts, visiting sponsor websites, a bunch of different metrics they've actually inbuilt into the app itself for what they actually want their users to do throughout the conference. At the end of the conference, though, they actually take a score, and the highest score receives a reward for all their interactivity throughout the conference. The next one is the Young Library Association, also known as YELSA. So YELSA was awarded funding to actually develop a badge-like program that was geared around helping library staff gain skills to help serve the youth in libraries. So obviously the growing concern around libraries is they want to get more young people involved within libraries because most people have just moved online. So the idea is that any library staff member can take part in web-based activities to gain skills in the areas covered by YELSA's competencies. Some examples of some badges that they could earn is if a staff member learns how to actually to use Twitter to connect with some of the teams, then they would earn a badge in the area of marketing, outreach, and communication. While if they gain skills in building a library collection for teens, they would earn a badge in the area of knowledge and material. So they set up a bunch of these different badges which the library staff could actually earn to help them serve the youth. But enough examples for now. You probably want to know exactly how you can use gamification in your organization. So I'll pass this back to Dan now. He's going to talk about this.
Just before I continue on that subject, there's quite a few questions coming through. So what we'll try and do is answer those questions once we finish the presentation. And if we don't, we will basically send you what those questions were and what the answers might be. And by the way, Eleanor, you just put in a really good question, so look forward to answering that one. Okay, so for associations, how could you actually use gamification? And I guess you're getting a bit of an idea having worked through the examples of Max has just presented, but really I guess there's three areas. One is obviously as engagement. Second one, education, which is a huge area where gamification has been used a lot by some of the leading tertiary and secondary schools out there. And then mission-specific ones, such as the folded example that we saw just before. Okay, I picked this image here, or this saying from Steve Jobs. The fact is, people don't read anymore. Now, the interesting stats, and again, this came out of an organization called Mashable, is that in the US, close to 50% of people only read one book or less per year, which is not much. If we went back 20 years ago, I'm sure the results would be quite different. But putting that into consideration, every minute of every day, Facebook posts 684,000 pieces of content. Twitter users send over 100,000 tweets. and Google receives over 2 million search queries, and that's every minute of the day. It also says that 75% of executives at Forbes said they watch videos for work-related purposes every week. Now, there's always going to be a place for the written word, and there'll always be a need for high-impact copy. But you've really got to think and say to yourselves, what are your plans for visual and video content that's about your brand, that's informative, and really you have to think about your content strategy and how you're delivering that, because putting just written stuff on the website just doesn't cut it these days.
Just one second. We forgot to actually put up our second poll. So if we can just get Sarah to put up that poll right now, then we'll have you guys answer that. And just as a side note to what Dan was saying right there, it actually got released today. This is just why you guys are answering this question, that Facebook now actually serves up to 4 billion video views per day. Just to give you an idea of how large all the online content digestion is right now, that 4 billion video views a day are served currently on Facebook, which 75% of them come from the mobile.
Okay, the question was, are you able to personalize content for members on your website? And we have 34% of the audience who says yes and 65% who says no. So guys, if the answer is no, you've really got to think about your strategy, because it's becoming more and more important to achieve that engagement, to have information, to have images that engage your audience and are specific to what their needs actually are. Okay, objectives of engagement. Well, there we go, increased time spent on website. So the gamification, organizations using gamification are looking at between 100 and 150% of pickup in views and page views, etc., which is pretty amazing, really. And some organizations, I've seen figures of 400%. It's about increasing involvement. It's about increasing, if you're in the providing CPD education or other training education, of increasing participation. And I think a lot of people would understand that it will attract a young audience. The young guys do like to play games, and have grown up playing games. We saw some examples about encouraging engagement at events. Very useful and quite easy thing to do. And also for your employees. There are quite a lot of examples out there, and Google these things, as to how organizations have used gamification to increase employment engagement. So using gamification for engagement, I've got 5 areas here. So the first one, awarding participation points and badges, which is, I guess, the classic thing that people think about with gamifications, or PBLs, points, badges, and leaderboards. So you do that from, you can award that through reading articles, just simply by logging in, by attending events, by contributing to a blog, to content, or to referring people. Put different weights on those activities that you want to encourage, and create an earning atmosphere to encourage participation, and strive and get your members to strive for something. Levels of achievement, get them to want to be on the leaderboard, and show your appreciation to all participants. Secondly, I've got there is creating super users. This is, I guess, where we start talking about loyalty and not just engagement. So, acknowledgement can turn people into super users. There's no question about that. People like to be acknowledged, for their contribution. It's pretty easy, if your reporting is done correctly, to know who these people actually are. And conferring that super user designation can really be a source of pride and a source of reward for what they've done. It also, by identifying who these people are, allows new members who join to actually know who these people are, who are the people that they should look up to, that they should engage with, and it'll keep your community buzzing. It'll drive contribution. Tracking and rewarding completion of activities. And visually encourage members to complete a project. Simply just as a member registration. For their renewal. For completing their update, their details in your private website area. And think about the LinkedIn completion bar, which asks you to complete certain steps along the way, or providing information. It's also great for motivating volunteers. You mobilize your membership to compete for a spot. Have them as the top volunteer And lastly, encouraging mentors, which is again coming up loyalty. We all want mentors to represent our association, and acknowledge them for their achievements. And before I pass on to Max, talk a bit more, we've got another poll. No, sorry, I missed that one. We had the last poll later on in the area. Education, Max.
Thanks, Dan. So, gamification of education itself. So gamification is really changing the education sector by reshaping the way that academics teach and the way that students interact and engage with learning material itself. So students are excited to engage in learning when it's presented as a game instead of classic teaching techniques. The students' innate sense of curiosity, interest, and determination really leads to an environment of learning under guise of playing a game. So you can really see this being taken into effect with the rapid uptake and results of Minecraft EDU in Australia, which is a version of the Minecraft game designed by teachers for classroom use itself. So next we have the actual gamification of education. So the two questions that often come up are, why should associations use it to aid in education, and what will the actual outcomes be? The answer to both of these are that the thoughtful use of both information systems and technologies can create an immersive, engaging, and authentic environment in which learners are encouraged to participate in the actual education process. It is this engagement and encouragement that leads learners towards higher knowledge retention from the learning process itself. It is also well known that students retain much more information when immersed in activities than they do just from listening to lectures. So next page we have is, what does the successful application of gamification in e-learning look like itself? So organizations embracing the gamification in learning can stand to see learners more engaged and retain more information, but only if they apply aptly certain techniques and certain things to keep in mind within these e-learning programs itself. Some of the key objectives to include in any e-learning program when you're talking about education are these 5 things that I've mentioned here. So the first is that understanding that gamification isn't just about games, but it's about learners. Therefore, the focus of your application needs to be centered around learning and how to improve it. Next, the games you create need to be tailored to the learning outcomes you want to achieve and should use a blended approach to actually deliver this education. Third is the need to understand that the goal isn't always to improve knowledge, but instead it is about using the techniques to help change fundamental behaviors that your students have. The fourth is that the application must be able to extract the motivation technique out of the game and use them for real-life applicable learning as well. And lastly, in order to actually have a successful game or task must be configured in such a way to allow a quick feedback of progress and communication of goals that need to be accomplished. And we saw that in some of the earlier examples of some of the business apps where they provide instant feedback so people know that they're actually doing the right thing. So next I thought I would talk to you about a few examples of how gamification is really being used in education. So 3 examples that I list here are Duolingo, Ribbon Hero, and Coursera. Some of you may have heard of some of these, some of you may have not. Duolingo itself is actually quite an interesting site. It's a massive online collaboration which combines a free language learning website with a paid crowdsourced text translation platform. So the service itself is actually designed so that students can learn a given language online while helping to translate websites and documents. So beginners usually start out with basic, simple sentences from the web, while advanced users receive more complex sentences. As one progresses, so does the complexity of the sentences they actually are asked to translate. So it's pretty much it's teaching you how to learn a new language while also helping people translate documents. And I think one of the examples they used on their website that is, if they had 1 million people using this website and wanting to learn Spanish, they could actually convert all of Wikipedia, all the pages on Wikipedia into Spanish in 100 hours. So it just goes to show you how if you really use the mass market to help with some of these social things, it can really improve the service for everyone. The next is Ribbon Hero, and some of you may have heard of this before. But Ribbon Hero is an add-in game available for free on Microsoft. It helps to educate users of Office 2007 and 2010 on how to actually use the tools available within the platform. So once installed, the game can easily be initiated from one of the keys within the program, such as Word, Excel, or PowerPoint. And in that game, users play and they accomplish different challenges and receive points. So it also has that sense of progression itself. The last example I was going to talk about here is Coursera. So Coursera, if anyone hasn't heard of them, is an online e-learning platform, if you will, which delivers content and courses for free to people. So on Coursera, progress can be measured by completing assignments and tests online, where machine grading and evaluation can be used. In good educational gamification spirit, the results are immediately reported to the student, as well as the instructional staff, providing feedback and reinforcement to the student. If you guys want to actually check out Coursera, I'd highly recommend it. It's actually the first place I learned about gamification, because their gamification course is actually their most popular course on the website. So if you're interested in learning more and potentially taking a small e-learning course on that, head over to Coursera and check out their gamification course there. I'll now pass it back to Dan, who's going to talk to you a bit about gamification strategy.
Thanks, Max. So really, to craft an effective gamification strategy, really, and I'm sure you understand this now, we've gone through some examples, a lot of thought has to be put into understanding what's really going to engage your users and motivate your users to perform the actions that you want them and the behavior that you want them to actually achieve. So, it is about the user journey. It has to add value. You need to understand your audience and what they want. And last but certainly not least, it really needs to be aligned to your core business objectives. I've got some tips there on strategy. I've researched this quite a lot substantially, and pretty much all the articles I've read all point to the same 7 or 8 core areas for strategy. So the first, game mechanics need to drive behavioural change. I mean, the reason you're doing it is you want your members, your users, to actually perform an action, an activity that is different to what they've been doing in the past. So it's not just for fun. It's got to be integrated with the goals and strategies. The main aim of applying game mechanics is to enhance the whole user experience, to drive positive change. Motivate them to interact, more with your content, and take specific actions that you want them to do. Understand, as I mentioned before, the needs of the audience. Give them what they want, and they will give you what you want. Some people get caught up in engaging the user without focusing on specific outcomes. So really very carefully evaluate your game mechanics. Design the user journey through different levels. And your game design needs to be designed for engaging users throughout their user journey, whether they're new members or they've been members for 10 years. The activity is going to be different. Where are they at and what do they want to go to next? Now, the real value is in engaging and motivating your users at a deep level. Your game design should be based, again, on your user's journey. And every stage needs to have an understanding of the user's needs and desires. And you really need a user-friendly website. I mean, the navigation of a user-friendly website allows the users to easily find what they want and will direct them to the next place they need to go to. It's really important to have that in place, really, even before you start your gamification strategy and start layering that game on top. If users have trouble finding your events, or they have trouble finding your news stories or other information on your site, chances they're going to have problems with your gamification elements. Thirdly, is to focus. I beg your pardon, I haven't spoken about recruitment and retention. Just going to quickly go on that. So some ideas with new users. So people who you want to join your organisation. So when building a community, the focus is on getting your members on board. So initially offer simple quests, with a liberal point system. Use things like what Facebook used, like a like, for a piece of content, or share content. Give them some welcome points when they come on board. Let them play for a while and accumulate some points before asking them to do an activity such as join or come to an event or come to a conference. and give incentives to existing members to bring their friends to the site. From a retention perspective, again, focus on turning engagement into loyalty, turning your users into brand evangelists. So giving them too much won't keep them interested for too long. Once they've done everything that they can on the website, the chances are they're going to drop off. So focus on intrinsic rewards more than extrinsic rewards. So rewards that cost you real dollars, or rewards that don't. So choose the rewards carefully and find a balance between your discounts and free products, and intrinsic rewards such as unlocking a limited edition badge and give them early access to some good content, or notification of the conference. Ask them to become maybe speakers to participate in the conference. So game mechanics need to offer value to the user, even if the value is a feeling of goal completion or self-esteem or pride. And then coming back to badges or points, which is probably the most common area for gamification, they need to tie directly into your business goals and to what users care about and are proud of. Keep your game mechanics simple. Again, it's not the game, but the game mechanics that will have an impact on productivity. They need to be simple to understand. A real game mechanic is short and specific, one kind of action leading to one kind of outcome. Keep it real. So again, tie your points, badges, and leaderboards with bigger interests. It's really easy to overdo it with too many badges and too many status symbols. Again, once the user is at the top, they will drift away. For example, the frequent flyer program is not just about collecting your miles alone. It's really about getting those miles and then redeeming them for a reward of some type. Get social. Two elements about this. There's been a lot of reports about organisations who are tying in the gamification strategy into their social media page, particularly things like Facebook. So marry your game design with social media, and then tie it back to your site. It really can create long-term engagement. And an example of that is the USA Network, which is an NBC TV channel. And they found that they could double the engagement on their Psych TV show website with a game-like competition. And that game-like reward program generated a 130% increase in page views and a 40% increase of participation to the show itself. And secondly, encourage your members to actually share their achievements, their points, their badges, where they're at on the leader score on their social media page. It will get good visibility. Hire good designers and savvy designers, industry savvy designers, and by that I mean people who actually understand how associations operate, as to people who might be good technologists but have no idea how associations operate correctly. And that's the reason why a lot of gamified applications fail to meet their objectives, because of the design is poor. It's got to be fun. It's all about doing boring things and making boring things fun. So that people come back. So work with designers who understand your business. And lastly, analyze and optimize. It might not work straight away. You've got to basically dig into it, analyze what you're trying to achieve, how you're promoting that, and correct it. It depends on what works, analyzing what works and what doesn't. It should provide you with all the data and analytics to track your progress, and that in real time. It's very important to analyze what motivates and drives the user to take certain actions. The platform should allow you to test different versions of the game mechanics to determine which gives you the best results. Lastly, your gamification platform should constantly help you with reports and analytics on how it is influencing user behavior and engagement. Talking about that, we're going to now talk about how to measure this, how to analyze it, and Max, over to you.
Thanks, Dan. So there are two key aspects of measuring the success of gamification within your business. Firstly, gamification design should modify the behavior of our users. So this is something I spoke about earlier. I can do this directly through calls to actions, goal setting, effort increases, but it also needs to impact behavior indirectly by improving motivation, creating team spirit, and actually increasing retention. Secondly, we can succeed in designing the gamification process, but if it is not aligned properly with the business goals, it will have no meaningful effect. A great example of this is if you were to reward service agents within your association to actually shorten the time service calls they make without focusing on actually keeping the quality high, because this will actually promote worse customer service and might actually impact your business negatively in the long run. So you really want to make sure that the goals are really keeping in line with what your association wants to do. Next, we have the business results. So in order to measure your business results, you need to also keep in mind 3 critical factors. The first is these should, you need to define your actual KPIs. These should be KPIs that are already used in your business. These will be a good starting point for certain indicators you may want to track. Next is to actually do a comparison of before and after. So it's absolutely crucial that you have sufficient information collected before you adapt any gamification techniques so that you can really measure the success or failure of certain aspects. Lastly, is to ensure that gamification encouragement goes hand in hand with business performance. So I mentioned this in the previous slide, and I'm really stressing it because it's really important. This is to say that as your customers are more and more successful in the gamification aspects, does that correlate positively to your business? So that is a crucial aspect. So how do you actually measure the engagement? Well, there are a number of ways to measure engagement and interactions, and these should all be aligned with the goals that you want to achieve. Here are a few different ways to measure engagement, and almost all of them can be measured on your website if you have Google Analytics or other site analytics installed on your website itself. Things like page views per visit, time spent on the website, depth of the website visit itself, social media sharing. Are people really involved with your articles? Are they sharing them on Facebook? Or are they sharing them on LinkedIn? The type of user that is actually most involved. Is it members? Is it sponsors? Is it just anonymous visitors? How engaged are people in events themselves? How much do they participate on your website? And if you do have an association where you're really trying to track conversions, what is the outcome of that? You know, for every 10 people that come to your website, how many of those are actually converting into a web form inquiry or some type of action that you want to actually track? The next is, once you gather all these points, so you take those measurements that you had before and you assign a point value to it. How much is it actually worth? Once you've actually established that point, you can actually start redeeming them. Some ideas that you can do within an association space to redeem these rewards are, you know, inviting people to special events, giving them VIP seating at these events, giving them life member badges. You can, if you have a directory installed on your website, then you can actually, you know, put a little star in the directory listing so it makes them stand out as almost like a preferred member. You can also offer discount for events and discount for merchandise. So most people with their current system should be able to do a lot of these. You might not be able to do them automated, but you can certainly do them manually. The next thing, and this kind of was brought up by Eleanor earlier as well, is how do you choose between using a mobile app or a website app to really drive your gamification? And that really depends on what your goals specifically for your organization are. If your goal is to really get people to digest content and to interact with your website, obviously your website is going to be a key motivator in that, and it's really going to drive people to go visit more articles, to attend events. Now, if you're trying to get more specifics on them, and if you're trying to get functionality out of their phone, which you wouldn't be getting out of the website if you want to know how they're traveling, like Amy app does, then that's when you want to use a mobile app. Things like at a conference, no one's going to be logging onto your website on a regular basis. So using a mobile app so that they can actually carry it around in their pocket and check themselves in at certain events and certain booths is obviously a lot better of an idea than having people trying to log onto your website to monitor all that. So the question that always comes up after most gamification discussions is, what is it actually going to cost any organization to put in a gamification strategy? So really, the short answer of that is that there shouldn't be too much extra internal resources needed if your gamification processes are mostly automated, as well as minimal management required when your processes are in place, such as reward systems. The software, if you have any software installed, is designed to track users, and depending on when they actually reach a new level in the system, will automatically boost them up to the next level. So leaderboards and rewards should all be automated as much as possible, so the management only need to oversee the system is correct and do random audits. All tracking can really be done within a CRM, if any of your associations have those, and staff members can often just view reports at any stage, which will appear in real time with most up-to-date and accurate data. However, a lot of planning and testing of the system will need to be done at the initial stage to ensure that it's all working correctly and as expected before the system is available to your members. So as Dan alluded to earlier, this is now the end of our presentation, but as Dan alluded to earlier, here are some few websites that we recommend that you visit. Feel free to get these when you get your presentation slides later. Also, like I said before, I recommend that you guys visit the Coursera course on gamification for further information. And then we're just going to have our last poll just pop up right now, which is just pretty much we want to know is are you actually going to be using gamification, or are you thinking about implementing gamification on your website within the next 12 months? Thanks a lot.
Guys. And just to note, we've also put a link in the chat box to a white paper from Member Evolution as well. So if you click on that link, it will take you to the white paper. And also just we've launched a survey on the right-hand side. So if you can please submit your feedback along with any additional questions that you might have for the guys, that would be excellent. Otherwise, I'll hand it over to the two of you to go through some final Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. First of all, we have a winner for our little Scrabble competition. And that is Edward B. So there'll be something in the mail for you, Edward. We'll just need to get your details. We'll get your email details, send you an email, and we'll go from there. So thank you for that. Now, questions. Let's just go back and have a look what we've got. Just while we quickly go through this.
So first question that we had there was Eleanor's question, and I've already kind of talked about that one, so maybe we'll skip over that one at this point. The second one we had there is Sarah's question, and Sarah's question was, is there any research into player types, ages, professions? Are particular types of people, for example, women, more inclined to play interactive types of games or other characters? And it's actually a really good question, because there was a paper written by a man named Richard Bartle. He came up with 4 different things which he said were the different types of games you can create and who interacts with those games the best. The 4 categories of games were killers, achievers, socializers, and explorers. And those are the 4 games he said that you can really create and sell. In his research paper, he said that men tend to be more killers and achievers, while women tend to be more explorers and socializers. What we'll actually do is I'll add a link in so that you guys can see more information on these different types of games, just in case you were thinking of actually tailoring a specific game for a specific segment. So I'll put that into the comment box right now. You guys can follow that along.
Okay, there's a question from Dwayne. What are the main reasons gamification programs fail, and what are the common pitfalls? I guess we sort of addressed that during the presentation. Things are like bad design. The game is too complicated. It doesn't reach its objectives from a business perspective. It's too long. The other, Max, you can think of there?
I think that one of the big things that often comes up in a lot of case studies about gamification and why they fail, it's once someone gets to the very top, and if other people can't themselves get to the top of a leaderboard, then they start giving up. So if you don't have that positive reinforcement feedback loop where anyone, no matter where they are on the leaderboard, can actually accomplish and get something out of it, then you'll often find that the top 20% of the people will interact with it, but the 80%, which are out of alignment with that top people, will stop interacting. So as an example, with that conference app, if you only reward the top 5 biggest people, and you have a leaderboard there, someone who comes the second day might look at the leaderboard and say, well, it's impossible for me to actually catch up to that leader and win something, so why should I do this? So your game tactics themselves should also include a sense of self-progression as one of those 8 motivating factors. So it's not just about comparing yourself to others, but it's about progressing yourself through the different levels.
By the way, the result, I don't know if you guys see the results of the poll, but 77% of the audience say they're looking at implementing a gamification strategy over the next 12 months, which is great, guys. And lastly, there's a question here from Graham. People are increasingly skeptical of marketing. Hey, I may just be a cynical Gen Xer, but does that also translate to perceptions of gamification? If someone has gone to the trouble of creating a game, then don't people ask, how are they trying to manipulate me? That's an interesting question.
It's a great question, Graham, and I guess it all comes down to, you're not just trying to get people involved in the game who are not interested in your industry. So this is really centered around your target market and people that you feel want to be involved with your association. So at the end of the day, your game is only helping them do that. It's helping them and motivating them to do something that they already want to be involved with. You're not trying to go out there, if you're an association for medical students, you're not trying to get people who play rugby to join your association. You're really geared towards medical students, and all your gaming tactics should be around how to help them, how to actually motivate them. And for the most part, they should be open to that because it's supposed to be fun. And it's taking what classical study and it's about education, it's taking classical education and actually changing that paradigm and making it fun for people to interact with the actual website and the content that you deliver to them.
Okay, guys, I think that's pretty much it. That's a wrap. So thanks everybody for spending an hour with us today. If you have any further questions, please feel free to contact Max or myself at Member Evolution. And we look forward to doing another presentation, I guess, in the not too distant future. Thank you, everybody.
And thanks everyone for joining today and giving up an hour of your time. And on behalf of AusAE, thank you also to Dan and Max for a very enlightening presentation. Just keep a lookout for the recording, which will actually arrive within 48 hours into your inbox. And if you do have any further questions, please feel free to contact the guys directly with their details on the screen or send an email to AusAE. So thanks everyone, and we look forward to seeing you at future events. Bye for now.